So I remember when I first read The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I was 12, maybe 13, when I was at summer camp. I think that these books have sort of made their way into like our standard pop culture. And I think that one thing that sort of followed them there was this idea of like magic pants. And they have become, especially after the movies came out, they've become kind of this like paradigm of like girly, like fluffy, not very important literature. And I guess I want to talk about why that is entirely untrue. So since I read Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants when I was 13, I of course since then have read all of the sequels. And don't get me wrong, I love your standard girl meets boy, everything's awkward, everybody gets together in the end book. Like, some of my favorites. But that's not what these books are, and I think that's for the better. So when I think about these books, I think that this is the kind of story that I someday want to share with my daughters. These stories with more complicated stories and characters. And you said something about how they lack detail, which is probably a fair point, especially some of the side characters. Although, I don't know, you were the first one, like, would you say that about Bailey necessarily, or maybe more about Ryan or Costas or Eric? I don't know. Some of the other side characters. I guess I need more detail from you on that, and what you were thinking. It's been a while since I've read the original ones, so I can't really comment on that. But with these girls, we see like almost every aspect of what a person would be concerned about, and especially a teenager. I suppose we see into their romantic lives. We see into their views on life and death. School and college, especially in the later books. We see a lot about depression through Bridget and her mom and the different ways they deal with that. And there's just a ton about family. Bridget dealing with her mom being dead and the way her twin brother and her dad and her all sort of have to like put themselves back together again after that happened. Carmen with the step family and trying to fit herself back into her family life and finding out where she belongs in that. Tibby, she has kind of like the new family and she was like the old kid and she struggles with that a lot. And just kind of feeling like she was the extra. And Lena, her parents have the really high expectations. And I mean, just in the first book, just dealing with their family situations is such a wide spectrum. And obviously the main theme running through all that is this girl's friendship and the highs and lows of that and how they, are there for each other and support each other, or when they feel like they've betrayed each other, they're letting each other down. And especially in the later books that you haven't read, there's a lot about them coming apart and coming back together as they grow up and as they move on to their separate lives. The first one's about this one summer where they're apart. Well, it continues on to what if they're apart for college, what if they're apart for jobs, what if they're apart for, ever, maybe. But, and I think one of the things the series is really good at is always finding that silver lining. If your friends aren't there for you, you have your family. If your family's not there for you, you have your friends. If you're fighting with one, there's always the other to kind of come and balance it out and help you. And I think that was one thing that's always really emphasized with these girls is how they balance each other. They're very different personalities and very different people with very different interests. And, the pants are kind of a metaphor for the magic of how they fit their different body shapes. It all sort of fits into how their friendship fits all of their different personalities and characters, and they're just lovely stories. You said they're very emotional. That's very true. They're very moving. They're very poignant and relevant, I think, to not only the modern teenagers, but I think to anyone who's ever, dealt with being a teenage girl. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts on that. I hope you continue to read the series, and I hope other people continue to read these books as time passes on and they become older and older and older. I guess if I read them when I was 13, they're at least 10 years old. Yikes. So, yeah, if you want to keep reading them and keep talking about them in person or on the videos, I would always be happy to talk about them.